Hi, what's happening, y'all? It's your boy Rico. We're going to take a look at our current cap space situation, how we compare to other teams in the NFL, where do we rank in cap space, and who are some of the guys that we may be interested in. There's reports that we're interested in Orlando Brown, Trey Boston, and then there are some other names that we were either linked to in the past or are currently linked to as far as analyst opinions go. So we're going to start with the reports and the opinions later, and as to who we should get and who will be a great fit for us. And we also have to talk about some of the reported needs that John Comm spoke about on his podcast that Rivera and company feel like we need to fill. Where are we going to attack in the draft? Where may we still attack in free agency? And there's a possibility that we may not sign any more free agents till after the draft. So we'll see. Let's get it. Alright, so first of all, let's start with the cap space. We are ranked 10th in the NFL in cap space, right behind the Kansas City Chiefs. I don't know, all that restructuring, a lot of their contracts are now backloaded, so they're going to be hurting in the future. But the Kansas City Chiefs somehow went from in the negative to 9th most cap space in the NFL. No team in the NFC East has more cap space than us, so that's good to hear. And we're currently sitting on $19 million. Just a little over it, 19.091. And that's a pretty good amount because even though we signed William Jackson to $14 million a year and Curtis Samuel to a little over $11 a year and Ryan Fitzpatrick to a flat out 10 with the possibility of it going up to 12 for this 1 year, and then went and got Adam Humphries and a lot of other little signings, we still are at $19 million worth of cap space. The way we've structured our deals to where it's not much of a cap hit in the early years, especially this first year, and they're more backloaded, allows us to have the cap space to still make moves in this free agency if need be. And of course, even though we have $19 million worth of cap space, you need to set aside some of that for your rookie class. The rookies don't play for free. So even though we currently have $19 million worth of cap space, a few million of that is for the rookie class that's just being set to the side for later use. And that applies for everybody. You have to subtract about $4 million more or less from every team's cap space when you're looking at what cap space they have total right now, because everybody's going to have to pay their rookies. Now, granted, what pick you pick in the draft determines how much you pay your rookies, because the first overall pick gets paid more than the 32nd overall pick in the draft, most notably the 19th overall pick for us if we stay at 19. But either way, it's around $4 million. But moving on from the cap space, and again, the cap space isn't necessarily imaginary. It's not just some concept that you can just completely work around. It's still a cap space. Teams that have been finding ways with the void years and all kinds of different things to make it so that they can spend as much money in this free agency period as possible and then just deal with the consequences in future free agencies. But at the end of the day, a cap space still exists for a reason. It's not soccer where it's literally no cap space and the teams with the most money get the best players. But just because you see $19 million worth of cap space and you want to go and get player X for $10 million worth a year does not mean we'll only have $9 million worth of cap space left. He'll probably only be like a $4 or $5 million cap hit this year if we keep structuring the contracts the way that we've been doing with William Jackson and Curtis Samuel. That's the best way to put it. But moving on, we gotta talk about this Orlando Brown Jr. situation. Was a third round pick a few years ago, has emerged as one of the best tackles in the NFL, one of the best left tackles specifically. And even though I don't feel like we have a big needed offensive line, we have a top 15 offensive line if we just go into this next year with exactly who we had last year. Pro Football Focus, again, like I keep saying, graded it 6th highest, but I'm not going to go that far. But if they gave it the 6th highest, that definitely doesn't mean they're just a bunch of scrubs like a lot of people act like. I like Cornelius Lucas, but at the end of the day, if you can go get somebody better at left tackle, and Cornelius Lucas is coming off the bench, he's arguably the best swing tackle in the NFL. And that's crazy depth. Same thing with Wes Schweitzer. I love him. I'm expecting him to start as of right now, but if Sadiq Charles can emerge and be as talented as we thought he could be and is able to stay healthy, Wes Schweitzer being a backup swing guard, he's arguably the best backup guard in the NFL, and which would give us the best offensive line depth in the NFL. Maybe not the best offensive line starting wise, but if we're just talking about depth, if Brandon Sheriff gets hurt, Wes Schweitzer's able to step in. If Orlando Brown or Morgan Moses gets hurt, you have Cornelius Lucas to step in. That's arguably the best offensive line depth in the NFL. So that's why I feel like we don't necessarily have to attack offensive line in the draft, like first round. But I definitely think we should probably address it in one of the later rounds. Or, like we're talking about right now, go and get an Orlando Brown, one of the top Pro Bowl talent left tackles out there. It's reported that we have interest in trading for him, but there goes the key word, trade. He's not just out there available. Granted, luckily for us, he's still on his rookie deal. So he's only a $3.6 million cap hit. So you're getting one of the best tackles in the NFL for extremely cheap money if you trade for him. But the problem is, again, you have to trade for him. Now, through research and looking around the league, most experts feel like you wouldn't even have to give up what was included in the Laramie Tunsil trade, which had 2 first-round picks. It may just only be 1. Now, granted, I'm team trade up for a quarterback. Love Orlando Brown, but if you can get a franchise quarterback, that matters way more than any other position, period. Look around the league. All of these teams around us have as many holes as us, if not more, but they're being led by great quarterbacks, and that's why they're consistently in the Super Bowl contention conversation. So I love Orlando Brown. I would love a better left tackle and linebacker and safety and all of that, but if we don't have a franchise quarterback of the future, it's not going to really matter. I mean, we may win a division every now and then or back to back to back, but at the end of the day, it won't result in Super Bowls. So that's my only problem. You have to trade a first round pick. And once you trade that first round pick for Orlando Brown, the highest we'll be picking in the draft is 51st in the second round. And again, I don't feel like tackle is that huge of a need to where you have to spend a first round pick on it, whether it be through the draft or trading away that first round pick for an Orlando Brown. And again, I love an Orlando Brown, but it is just like, then what? Now what? What is our ceiling with Orlando Brown compared to our ceiling with the franchise quarterback? Is my argument. Love Orlando Brown. If we can somehow get him for anything but a first round pick, if we can put together multiple seconds and thirds, I'm doing it. But I really do feel like we need that first round pick. Even if we don't trade up for quarterback, you never know if like a Micah Parsons or a Kyle Pitts or one of those dominant receivers drops to 19, or even JOK. With all of the quarterbacks that may go early in the draft, great talent is going to fall. So we'll see. There's also been several reports that we are interested in free safety Trey Boston. I feel like he fits this team very well because we don't need a guy that can double up as a free safety and step up in the box when necessary to make a tackle, because that's Trey Boston's biggest weakness. He had an off year last season because they used him in the box more than they used him in free safety, which I have no idea why, because he's a rangy, deep, single high center fielder type of free safety. For some reason last year in Carolina, they wanted to use him in the box, and of course he didn't succeed. Of course it was one of his worst years of his career. If we can get a Trey Boston, especially for really cheap, like a cheap 2-3 year deal, maybe like $2 million a year, that's only slightly less what he was making with Carolina when he was coming off of a great season before he got signed. He's coming off his worst season in his career right now. We can probably get him for even cheaper than what they were giving him, which was around like $4 million a year. So if you can get Trey Boston for like $2 million a year for 2-3 years, I think that's perfect. You know what you're getting out of him. Again, don't expect him to step up in the box and make a play, but he's that elite, rangy center fielder free safety that fits perfectly, because this team already has Cameron Curl and Landon Collins. Why would we need Trey Boston to step up in the box? Where do you have William Jackson locking down the number one receiver in any given offense? We have Kendall Fuller, who's a really good corner, going against wide receiver 2s now instead of wide receiver 1s like he did last year. All we need is just that elite guy on the back end that just holds it down. You know how much cover 1 we're going to run if we get a Trey Boston-like guy? And also with Trey Boston, if you're paying him cheap, that doesn't necessarily mean you don't go draft a guy or bring in another guy like Malik Hooker. In addition, you have Malik Hooker for the potential. You hope to get him healthy, and you're grooming him, and you're hoping to develop him into being that elite free safety that he was supposed to be coming out of Ohio State. And in the meantime, you have Trey Boston to fill in right now, day one, and you know exactly what you're going to get. And I think Trey Boston literally makes our defense elite, because that's one of the main things we're missing. We're missing a rangy free safety, and we have a shortage in linebackers right now. You get the elite rangy free safety, and if Landon Collins accepts some type of role within the box, a consistent role in the box, I don't see why we don't have the best defense in the NFL, honestly. And the Trey Boston thing is crazy because we were hearing rumors that we were interested in him before free agency started, like months before, then like a couple of days before, and then now again, like literally today, it's been reported again. But I feel like with Trey Boston, I think it's a situation where we may just be waiting until after the draft to see how the board falls, if we're able to get a Trevon Moehrig or Javon Holland or any of these other guys that can play free safety. and somebody that we can groom to be a free safety. Maybe we're just waiting to see how the board falls, and then we don't want to sign Trey Boston and then end up drafting a starting free safety, and now Trey Boston's just sitting there looking crazy, just eating up money. I mean, I don't think it would be for a lot of cap space anyway, but still, I mean, that's just money to just give out for free if you end up signing them, drafting like a Javon Holland, and then now you end up releasing Trey Boston, and that's just unnecessary dead cap. So I think they may just be waiting until after the draft for this Trey Boston move. But expect after the draft, if we don't address free safety at a high enough pick or a guy with enough potential and talent, especially a guy that we don't believe can step in day one, you might as well just go ahead and pencil in Trey Boston after the draft. And similar with Orlando Brown, honestly, I would be down to trade for an Orlando Brown after the draft, because after then, maybe we traded up for quarterback, or maybe we already used our first round pick on an elite talent like a Micah Parsons, Kyle Pitts, or one of those guys, JOK, if one of them falls to us. And now I don't value a first round pick as much because I already know what this draft class is like, and I already know what that first round pick I want to use it to either trade up or use it to get one of those elite talents that may fall to us. But after the draft, hey man, Orlando Brown, if we don't trade up and still have a first round pick in the 2022 draft, I'd be willing to give up that first round pick before I give up this one. Also, listening to John Combs' podcast, it's reported that the Burgundy and Gold really want a big receiver. It's reported that they like Cam Sims' potential, they like Kelvin Harmon's potential, and then there's a reason they picked up Isaiah Wright as an undrafted free agent and drafted Antonio Gandy-Golden. But at the end of the day, there's a reason that there's been reports that we're interested in possibly trading for N'Keal Harry, and I think they want to. I just think the Patriots are asking for too much. I think the Patriots are asking reportedly for like a 4th round pick right now, and Rivera and company just aren't willing to give up a pick that high. But if they can retrieve a N'Keal Harry for like a 5th or maybe even like a 6th round pick, I think that deal gets done like immediately. I think that's all they're waiting for. So they want a big receiver because Terry McLaurin is a wide receiver 1 all day, and he's a great contested catch guy. But at the end of the day, he's a speed demon that's 6 foot even. Not like 5'8" like a lot of these other speedy guys, but he's still only 6 foot. Curtis Samuel's another speedy guy. He's only 6'1". N'Keal Harry is that 6'4" guy that we're missing to complete this receiver core. Granted, again, Cam Sims, if he can be consistent, Kelvin Harmon with all of his potential, but at the end of the day, N'Keal Harry was drafted in the 1st round for a reason. Cam Sims went undrafted for a reason, and Kelvin Harmon wasn't drafted until the 6th round for a reason. N'Keal Harry has a way higher ceiling than both of those guys. If you can bring in N'Keal Harry for like a 6th round pick, 5th round pick, do it because his ceiling is way higher. And like I spoke about in my N'Keal Harry video, I love Cam Sims, I love Kelvin Harmon, but at the end of the day, like I keep saying, those 3 were picked when they were picked for a reason. N'Keal Harry is a freak athlete, and if you can bring him here with pressure off of his shoulders, because you already have Terry McLaurin, Adam Humphries, and Curtis Samuel taking all of the attention away from defenses, carrying the load. If you can bring N'Keal Harry in an environment like that, especially with a Ryan Fitzpatrick who's not scared to throw it up to receivers in one-on-one coverage, even if the coverage is good, let N'Keal Harry make a play, that can boost his confidence, and you can end up with a 1st round talent wide receiver, and you only traded what, like a 6th round pick for. I say do it if it's like that. Now, I agree with Rivera and company where I don't think it's worth giving up a 4th round pick or higher, because we've seen with these 3rd, 4th, and even 5th round picks have been like for us in the draft. But if you can get them for like a 5th or 6th, do it. It's also reported in the John Com podcast by John Com that they feel like we need to address tight end. Of course, we need a tight end too, because Logan Thomas is tight end 1. But if a Kyle Pitts falls, he's going to end up being tight end 1. And Logan Thomas is the best tight end 2 in the NFL easily. And we have the best tight end duo in the NFL. But tight end just isn't a huge need, but we should get a guy that's an upgrade over Jeremy Sprinkle at least. And who knows what Thaddeus Moss is going to be. I love Thaddeus Moss. I love his talent, but who knows? And then, of course, free safety was also reported. Running back, because J.D. McKissic's a 3rd down back. Antonio Gibson is a great every down back. But you need a 3rd guy to come in and carry some of the load. Peyton Barber more than likely isn't part of the equation in the future. And Lamar Miller is just basically a camp body in my opinion. So, of course, they would like to address running back. But I don't think they address it higher than like the 6th or 7th round. You may just wait until undrafted free agent time to get a running back. Because we've seen like James Robinson was arguably the best rookie running back. He went undrafted. And we've been seeing that trend over the past few years. It's not worth drafting a running back in the 1st round unless it's just this generational Derrick Henry type guy. Christian McCaffrey. And even Christian McCaffrey can't stay healthy. Saquon Barkley can't stay healthy. Zeke didn't last too long. I mean, just running backs. I mean, Todd Gurley. Who knows how long Nick Chubb is going to last? And that's my Georgia Bulldog, him and Todd Gurley. But it's just like running backs, they rarely make it to their second contract. And if they do end up getting that second contract, they're just not the same afterwards. So it's just not worth spending high picks on running backs at this point. Left tackle, of course, they would like an upgrade over Cornelius Lucas, but I'm pretty sure when in doubt, they're comfortable with rolling with Cornelius Lucas another year. And then linebacker, of course, but like I keep talking about in live streams and several videos, we haven't needed linebacker, but at the end of the day, we're in nickel 60% of the time or more from last year, and we may be in it even more next year. So at the most, we may have 2 linebackers out on the field any given play. And I feel like Cole Holcomb's good enough. John Bostic frustrates me, but he's decent. Prefer him as depth, but he's decent. Khaleke Hudson has potential. Josh Harvey-Clemens has potential. And we still need a role for Landon Collins. So at the end of the day, if we only need 2 guys out of those 5 to be on the field on any given play, I think we can work around that. And again, another one of my arguments is that we had the number 2 defense in the NFL, and all we did was lose Kevin Pierre-Louis, and we upgraded from Ronald Darby to William Jackson. If anything, our defense has only gotten better from last year. So linebacker is a need, but it's not this just huge, we're about to lose 5 games strictly because we don't have a premier linebacker. We had the number 2 defense last year without it. They also said they want a dual returner, which of course is important. So like a corner that can double up as a returner or a receiver that can double up as a returner. And of course that means that shouts out Kadarius Toney, but I don't think they're going to take a Kadarius Toney in the first round. And I also don't think he would make it to the second round by our pick. That's what having the 19th pick does. It gets ugly because it's kind of a reach to get him at 19, honestly. But he's not making it to our second 19th. So it's just, hey man, struggle. But I can definitely understand that. I mean, they brought in Adam Humphries to potentially be that, our starting slot and maybe our starting returner. But with his injury history the past 2 years, you're not depending on that. So they may address that in the draft or free agency. And then, of course, John Com ended it with future quarterback. Of course, that's a huge need. I'm pretty sure there's at least some interest in one of those top guys. It's just whether or not they feel like it's worth it to trade up and to give up all of those picks to get one of them. I'm pretty sure there's interest in Lance and Fields, Wilson, but do they love them enough to give up several first-round picks and some more stuff to go get them? That's the only argument. There's no way you can tell me that they're not interested. They're sending the max people you can send to any given pro day, 3 of them to Trey Lance's pro day. I'm pretty sure they're probably going to send some to Justin Fields's. I think we may have only sent like 1 to Mac Jones if we did, so that just lets you know where the interest lies. Scott Turner and Rivera have not just blatantly come out and said it this offseason, but through interviews and press conferences last year, with the difference between Kyle Allen and Taylor Heineke versus Dwayne Haskins and Alex Smith, they have both constantly emphasized how much mobility matters in the offense and how much they prioritize it on this team. So, of course, Lance and Justin Fields are in play. Also, NFL Rumors, who's been very accurate with a lot of the rumors going around the NFL, and they've called a lot of stuff before it even happened, before players even signed with teams. He said the best fits for Malik Hooker are the Jaguars, the Eagles. The Eagles is kind of weird because they already have Anthony Harris, but maybe as in bring in Malik Hooker to learn behind Anthony Harris, I guess, to groom him to be the next guy. And then, of course, us. And again, like I said earlier, you can probably bring in a Trey Boston and a Malik Hooker, both for very cheap. Malik Hooker has elite potential, elite talent coming out of Ohio State. I mean, some people thought he would potentially be like a top 5 safety in the NFL. But injuries have stunted his growth. He just hasn't been able to develop and progress and get accustomed to playing at the NFL level. So I say we bring him and Trey Boston in if you can. I would love that because you have the guy in Trey Boston right now that can play, and Malik Hooker, who could potentially be the future and be an elite free safety in the NFL. Especially behind this defense. I mean, William Jackson at outside corner, Kendall Fuller at corner, and this defensive line. Malik Hooker would have the easiest free safety job in the NFL. Taking pressure off of him, same logic with a N'Keal Harry. Taking pressure off of him, it's not like it's up to him. The defense is on his shoulders. That should allow him to play better. It should allow him to slowly gain his confidence back and turn into that elite, rangy center fielder free safety that we thought he could be. And clearly, he's more talented than a Trey Boston, but Trey Boston has at least shown he can go do it. So Trey Boston for right now to start day one and groom Malik Hooker over time. And hopefully before the end of the season, Malik Hooker's ready to go out there and steal Trey Boston's job. And then lastly, remember, we were heavily interested in CJ Mosley last free agency period before he went and signed with the Jets. So the Burgundy and Gold may do whatever they can to go trade for him. So just keep that in mind. CJ Mosley is another name to keep in mind as a potential trade, because maybe you can get him for like a 3rd round pick. Who knows? That would immediately solve our linebacker need, because CJ Mosley and Cole Holcomb starting in our nickel packages, which is basically our base package because that's what we run the most. That's a really good linebacker core, honestly. And then you have John Bostic off the bench, who's decent. You know what you're going to get from him. Nothing great, but also nothing too terrible. And then you have Khaleke Hudson and Josh Harvey Clemens in the back being groomed to step up to be one of those top talent guys, but just you never know what they're going to end up doing. I'm okay with that linebacker core, especially, again, like I keep saying, we had the number 2 defense before you went and got a CJ Mosley, before Josh Harvey Clemens came back, before Khaleke Hudson started showing signs of greatness every now and then when we started throwing him in towards the end of the season. So if you go from number 2 defense to the scenario I just gave out, I don't see why we don't have the best defense in the NFL. I don't see it. It's not just this super panic situation like a lot of people feel like it is. But that's the end of this video, man. Please get in the comment section. Let me know how you feel about everything we discussed. The cap space, some of these players we're targeting, who Rivera and company feel like our needs are. I mean, it's kind of obvious. They kind of just basically said, like, out of 22 positions, they named about 20 of them. So it's not really big news, but I mean, it's interesting to know specifically what they're looking for. Not just receiver, but a big receiver. Not just a safety, but specifically a rangy free safety. Not just specifically a linebacker, but like a CJ Mosley type of linebacker. Somebody that can cover very well. But yeah, man, definitely get in the comment section. Let me know how you feel about everything discussed in this video. And as always, please like this video if you liked it. If you learned anything, please subscribe if you haven't. Hit the bell next to the subscription button so you get a notification every time I release an informative video like this one. Every time I release a film session like I just did a couple of days ago. Every time I live stream. Every time I release a mock draft. I've already gotten 3 out the way. We have 2 more to go. And each of the 5 are different types of mock drafts. One's a trade up, one's a trade back, one's a dream case, one's the most realistic one, and so on and so forth. They're not just I'm randomly doing a mock draft every few or so weeks. It's me attacking different types of challenges and scenarios. So definitely stay tuned for that. And as always, man, I appreciate all of the support, man. Everybody that pulls up to every video, every live stream, leaves a like. That's very important. Very, very important. And of course, it's huge when y'all go around and share it to other people to add people to the Street Scores family. Really appreciate y'all. And as always, man, I really appreciate everybody that donates, all of my sponsors, especially my Pro Bowl sponsors whose names you see scrolling on the screen right now. And I'm not sure if all of y'all know, but when I release film sessions, my sponsors get the way longer version, like literally double the plays that I analyze, double the length in film session. So if you want to get the full length film sessions and not just half of them, definitely go and become a channel member. And stay tuned for everything I got coming on the way. I'm working. I'm trying to do a video every day because there's so much to talk about. I have so many video topics and ideas. The only thing holding me back really is editing. Like, this video has gone on for 31 minutes worth of recording. It's probably going to end up being like 15 to 20 minutes. But it's probably going to take me like 3-4 hours to edit it. So, you know, if it weren't for editing, y'all would get like 3 videos a day. So, I'm on it. I'm working. I promise y'all, videos, content, live streams constantly coming. I'm out.